Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Berland, Jayme Mantos, Nick Omana. Um, Jayme will continue letting people in as you arrive. And I want to welcome you to what I'm calling the inside room. And this is going to be a discussion that has to do with voiceover. And the main subject is switching from discouraged to encouraged. And we're going to be giving you lots of information and nuggets along the way for about an hour. And then it will definitely be opened up to questions. So I'm Terry. This team that I put together, I think is really, really interesting because it's this perspective from a casting director. Those of you who don't know me, I'm a casting director. I cast when it has to do with commercials, both voiceover and on camera. I always have my whole career. Nick Omana, I've known since before 1992. And we actually teach together, and it's a great, we teach voiceover together through VoicePrint West. It's a great combination because, again, you get the perspective of a casting director and a very accomplished working voiceover artist. And Jayme Mantos, who is my assistant, who is an actor, and a large part of her career is devoted to voiceover, and she's working her way up the ladder. So I thought it would be just a really interesting perspective for all of you. So Nick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Nick Omana. I've done voiceover for way longer than I care to admit, almost 40 years now. And I've had the opportunity to see the business change quite a bit, especially in the last few years. That is what I'm going to be bringing to today's discussion.
Great. And Jayme?
Yeah, like Terry said, my name's Jayme. I'm her casting assistant at Berland Casting, and I'm also a voice actor. And I've been doing this professionally for about 8 years now and working my way up through the industry. So I'm really excited to share some nuggets that'll hopefully help everybody else in their careers.
So since we have two voiceover actors who are definitely in different positions in their career, I'd like to ask you both, what steps did you take to get to where you are today? Nick, do you want to start?
Sure. Basically, it always starts with the first step, which is getting proper training to learn how to do this more than anything else. And that's one thing that's probably been the biggest misconception over the last few years is I've got a mic, I can read, I can do voiceover. And that's, yeah, I guess you can if you want to live in the fiber world. But really, I was told when I first started checking into voiceover, I spoke with a few agents. A friend of mine was working in an ad agency and said, why don't you call some of these agents I work with and find out how to get started? And they all said the same thing. Take some workshops, get proficient, put together a demo that we can assess where you're at, and we'll go from there. And that's really how it started for me.
Okay, great. And Jayme, how did it start for you?
Yeah, it started for me. I was kind of playing around when I was a kid and with my dad and friends doing different voices and accents and impressions and things for fun. And then when about 2016, I was approached by a voiceover coach who was like, hey, I see that you're an actor. Have you ever thought about getting into voiceover? And I was like, actually, that sounds amazing because I grew up watching cartoons like every other 90s kid. So I started training, instantly fell head over heels in love. And then since then, I've just continued training and working and immersing myself in the community.
Great. So let's move it forward now. So this is how it started. I do want to interject as a casting director. What Nick and Jayme said, there are so many voiceovers now that go through the traditional breakdown services. So what's happening now is agents who are not really voiceover agents are representing you voiceover. So they're sending you voiceover gigs and of course, opportunities to audition. So of course you're going to audition. And those of you who are here, and by the way, I recognize some of your names, you probably quickly learn that, okay, you can do that audition, but you really can't do it competitively. So we're going to start getting into nitty gritty here now. So Nick, so tell me like your experience of when you first got into it and as opposed to now when you're, a busy voiceover artist. I know you always have to stay relevant, even when you're established like you are. Give them some pearls of wisdom.
Well, I think, the thing that I recall early on is my first agent was on the third floor of a building on Beverly Boulevard. And I cannot tell you how many times in the very start, I'd be riding the elevator down going, oh my God, that's what they wanted. Try to give your best read in the booth, not in the drive, in the car on the drive home, which means getting focused, learning how to break down your copy, do all the things you need to do prior to stepping in. Back in the day, we didn't get copy before we walked in the door.
Right.
We actually have the luxury now because it's being sent to us and we're auditioning home. That's the flip side of the equation is we don't get direction because we're doing it from home alone. But having the confidence and the skills to apply that to what you're doing. And so Jayme said something that just kind of hit me when she was saying it. She continued to study and work and study and work. Even at my stage, there are times where I'll sit there and I'll call a coach and say, hey, you know what? I'm getting kind of rusty, or I'm not really getting into this new thing. What am I missing? So it's a constant evolution, but you have to be aware of that and you have to be willing to change.
Great. And Jayme?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like right what Nick said, I think when you get complacent, that can really tend to hurt you rather than help you. And something that's great as actors is having a curious mind, right? That's something that's really important in this. And so wanting to always learn from different people or in different areas of voiceover and get tune-ups and grow and expand. I think no matter what stage you're at in your career, even like the top A-list working pros, I guarantee you they still go to coaches when they feel like they need a little bit of a tune-up or they feel stuck on a particular audition. So it's always good to maintain training throughout your entire career.
Nick, you said, great, thank you. You said something about approaching a script. I'd love to get into that. So you actually give people here nuggets today. But I want everyone to know as a casting director, I have to figure out how to approach a script because when I get my direction from my clients, they don't speak in the same language to describe what they want from you as I would speak to you. So I look over a script quite a number of times and I figure out the approach that you would have to take, the emotional feel of the script to help me figure out the direction that I'm writing to you guys, you voiceover people who are on here now, you talent. And then I write out my direction to you. As Nick mentioned, before COVID, when people used to come into my office, probably during the first 3 reads, myself and my session director, I would always be in the session. And during those first 3 reads, we would figure out, like, as you would read the written direction, like maybe I went a little wrong and I should have expressed it this way. So we were able to, I was able to keep adjusting and then even rewrite my direction for the rest of the day. And by the way, that doesn't mean if you were called in first that you had less of a chance. I've seen many, many people who came in the first time who got it. But we're going to get into a little later the changes and where we are today specifically. So, Nick, like any nuggets for people, hints like, you know, your successful way of approaching a script?
I think for me, it really, one of the things I miss is getting that direction from a booth director. So now it becomes incumbent upon us to be our own directors, and you almost have to be able to separate the two. When I break down the copy, I take the time to make sure, one, in most cases, they want it delivered conversationally, despite how it's written. It's like, this is not written conversation. I would never say this in a conversation, but okay. Then you also have to decide who it is that you're speaking to, because there is a demographic that they're trying to reach with that copy. And so you need to put that person into the copy that you're doing. Also just getting a perspective on what is the point of this spot? What are they trying to do? Are they selling, lettuce at Kroger's, or are they, are they just trying to get a general feel or, an impression of their company? Some things are image oriented, some things are sales oriented. So breaking those things down and getting the ideas together before you go into the booth and read is really important. Just making sure that, again, 99% of what we do is based on our confidence and our ability to do it when we get behind the microphone. So do your prep work, be ready to go. Sometimes it's a little hard when you have a 2-hour turnaround and you're already working.
Yeah.
It's yet another aspect of what's changed, but hey, you take the
Exactly.
good with the bad,
I see Tracy said, I too like direction. Hi, Tracy. By the way, Tracy and some other people here, like we have a history of relationships. So these kind of forums that we're doing, don't forget, we're all forming relationships. We're all a community. And the voiceover community is a really supportive, great community. And I can feel it when I go to parties for voiceover, and Jayme and I went to a Nova
The Nava Gala, yeah, it was so fun.
Gala fundraiser, and it was all voiceover artists and casting people and producers. And we're all on the same level, guys. Once you start working and once you're competitive, we are all on the same level. And I've said this before, casting directors are nothing without good actors. So there you go. Jayme.
Yeah, so as far as approaching a script and script analysis and things like that, a lot of what Nick said was so important. Emotionally connecting to the read, knowing specifically who you're talking to, and like you guys have talked about in your workshops and things as well, is it a more intimate read? So mic technique as well, is it going to be a little bit closer to the mic? Are you supposed to be talking to a group of people because it's a corporate narration thing that's going to be playing in front of the whole company? So knowing that, kind of the tone of it. And something that I always do, especially no matter how much time I have, is I will read it out loud just once or twice before I go into the booth as a cold read, to make sure that all of the words sound natural and organic coming out of my mouth. And I'm not stumbling over words or anything like that. I also always look up pronunciation, particularly of the specific company that we're representing or the product that we're representing. And I usually go to YouTube for that. A lot of these companies have their own YouTube channel. So I'll usually go there first, because the correct pronunciation is going to be coming from the company's videos. And if I can't find it online anywhere, I'll ask my agents. I have no problem sending them an email, just being like, hey, I just really want to know, how am I supposed to pronounce this? And then they'll ask the client and get back to me. And then that way I feel like I can bring my most confident self to the read.
I have to do the same thing. Definitely, guys, if there's something you don't know how to pronounce, look it up on YouTube. It's all there on the internet. Okay.
Yeah, it's just like if you hear your own name mispronounced,
Yeah.
it strikes you. Same thing happens with the client. They go, they don't even know. Okay, but no, that's a very good point.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's talk about today and how you get copy today and what are some of the you know, what's difficult today, what's how you have to get through roadblocks, wherever you want to take that.
Yeah, no, I
I'm
think
sure some of the people here will be able to relate to some of them.
it has changed a lot, especially since COVID. Prior to COVID, I was probably one of about 10% of talent who had home studios. I've been working from home for 12 years prior to COVID. And so that really changed the landscape because in a day, 90% of my competition went away. And it took a few months for people to get back up to speed. Matter of fact, it took longer than that because I was working almost 7 days a week for 2 years.
That's too much, Nick. I'm sorry.
I
You need a
know.
break.
I learned the word no, just not really good at pronouncing it. It comes out sounding like yes a lot of times. My accent's horrible. But no, I think the thing that I think has changed so much is we do everything. The reason I moved to a home studio is I had a brick and mortar for many years. And the last 2 years I was there, I literally saw my clients in studio maybe a dozen times. We were doing everything still ISDN back in the day. And so I thought, it's a lot of money to spend for that. So I moved to a home studio. Do you need to spend tons of money on equipment? No, 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 no. Do you need to have at least a minimum basic quality? Yes, absolutely. It needs to be broadcast quality, which means your environment needs to be quiet. It needs to be not echoey and bouncy. It needs to be clean. But do you need to spend $1,000 on a microphone? No, there's some really good microphones you can get for a lot less than that. And they work perfectly fine. So, for me, I think making that adjustment to the way things are done now, I now have 8 agencies representing me around the country. Some of them I get a little overlap more so now than I used to, because as you were saying, a lot of people are getting into breakdown services. And so the breakdown services are kind of, broad based. And so a lot of the agents around the country have access to that. But there are also a lot of major markets around the country that we get no overlap on. The things I get out of Minneapolis or out of Austin or out of Chicago, I don't get here. So there's no conflict and no overlap, and I'm not having to make choices. Everybody knows if my agent in LA gets it, it defaults to them no matter what, because that's my agency of record. But all the other ones are ancillary things that come in. So being willing to get out there and put yourself out there, and the real job really, and I've said this many times, when I tell people I do voiceover for a living, it's kind of a lie, because the real job is looking for work. When I'm successful at that, I get to do voiceover. So knowing that that is the job, embracing the audition process, which is really the whole start of it in the beginning for most people, is, kind of key and paramount.
Jayme, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to talk about in today's climate, even specifically like today, the day we're on this call, I, like a lot of other voice actors, know that the start to the year has been a bit slow. There just haven't been quite as many auditions coming in as there were. And, it's very easy for us to freak out and be like, there's nothing happening. Is it just me? Am I the only one not getting all these auditions? And I guarantee you're not. I've been seeing posts from casting directors, actors, agents alike acknowledging that it's slow right now. So definitely don't feel discouraged by that. It is going to continue to pick up. So don't worry about that. And there are 3 tenets, honestly, of things that I really rely on that help me maintain a healthy mindset throughout those slower times where there's not as much happening, and even through the good times. And those are the 3 P's. We have practice, persistence, and perseverance. And so what I want to say about this with practice, right? In those times where it feels a bit slower, like we said with classes and stuff before, there's always something that you can be doing. How does your website look? Does that need a little bit of an update or a tweak? How about your resume, your voice samples? Or if you don't have a sample of like just your audio booth quality of your home studio up on your website for people to listen to, maybe do that. Take some workshops, get to know people, ask some people out to coffee, go to voiceover networking events or connect with more people on social media, create some of your own content that showcases what you can do so you can get yourself out there to people. And I know that a lot of people, especially me included, can be very hesitant to the word networking, right? It just feels gross. It feels inorganic. And even my friend Chelsea Krause, who I see is on this call, she went to VoicePalooza at VoiceTracks West last night. And the thing is, it really is about human connection. Don't, like Terry said, once you start working, we're all in this together as a community. So don't try to be like, oh, I have to sell myself and I have to impress these people. No, we're all just people. And we all just want to like connect with someone who seems lovely to chat with. And your work, your samples, your demos, your auditions will show how talented you are for itself. But people love to work with people that they enjoy and want to work with in a booth as well. So practice. Definitely always find something that you can be working on to hone your skills so that you stay ready when the abundance of flow comes in. Patience, which goes in with persistence and perseverance. You know, this is a long game. And if you love voiceover and you're interested in or are already pursuing it as a career and not just a hobby, it takes years. We've all heard the trope of overnight success can take up to 10 years in Hollywood or what have you. And sometimes there's going to be ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys. And so just, you know, staying patient, as long as you're doing the thing, you're making organic connections and you feel confident in the work that you're putting out, I guarantee you good things will come of it if you just stick with it long enough. I've certainly seen that in my own career and in the careers of my friends as well. And persistence, perseverance, you know, like I said, keep going, keep working on things, keep growing, keep maintaining that inner strength. And from a mindset, mental health perspective, that isn't always just the active voiceover related things you're doing. You know, if you take care of yourself as a person, eat well, take care of your body, get good sleep. If you have certain, I just saw someone in the chat asked about daily routines. Everyone's going to find what works best for them. So experiment, take some time to figure out when you're not in that upset headspace, what habits you need to build so that way when you're in that, you can refer back to it. For me, I like to start my morning. I get up early enough to do some yoga so that I feel in my body. There are also really great, if you are yoga fans on here, there's throat
Nick, I know
chakra
you do
yoga.
that too. Nick, I know you do yoga every morning too.
Yeah, and like for voice actors, there's great throat chakra yoga, which I always do the day before or like the morning of a session or a bunch of auditions because it really helps open you up and relax these muscles in here as well. So I do that. I journal and meditate and just take some quiet time in the morning so that I feel good and set up in mind, body, and spirit for the day. So those are just a few things. I'll circle back and I'm happy to elaborate more if anyone has any questions. But if you just maintain the 3 Ps, I promise it'll set you up for success.
Jayme, a couple of people entered the waiting room.
Excellent.
Nick, what do you do to take care of your vocal cords and or warm up? Or I know I've heard you say that you obviously you know your voice so well. There are certain times of the day that certain jobs, whether deeper or can you go into that more?
Sure. I'm an early riser. I'm usually up between 5 and 6 without an alarm every day. Sometimes 4 o'clock if I have something special I have to do. To me, a session earlier in the day is better for me. By about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, my voice starts to get a little bit raspy. It gets a little thin on the bottom end because I don't have the strength and I'm just fatigue will take its toll. And if I've been in the booth for 3 or 4 hours already, by the end of the day, it's time to start, that's when I try to plan my editing and, calls and things like that. So that's important. There's a thing called a singing straw. It's a set of tubes, little tubes that you can use to get some back pressure and use, the different sizes as you progress to get better. It helps to strengthen the vocal apparatus. I have a new little thing that I've started using, and it's actually
I
more
never
for
knew
the
about
diaphragmatic.
that.
Oh, the singing straws?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, these are great.
Yeah, they're really good. I have another one here. It's called the breather, and it's actually a respiratory tool for building diaphragmatic, I guess, health, if you will. It's used for people with respiratory problems to help bring them back, but it's also for people with healthy respiratory systems to strengthen them.
Wow.
So those are things that you can do proactively to take care of your instrument. What Jayme was saying, definitely, stay away from things that are going to cause, any kind of mucus buildup, any dairy, chocolate, coffee. I love my coffee. If I have a session in the morning, I wait, and I may have to bypass my coffee altogether that day because it just makes you pasty and causes mouth noise and things like that. Also, breathing. Take the time to do breathing exercises. Again, how this, diaphragmatic stuff makes a difference. We don't have to breathe anywhere near as often as we do. When you hear people, they have breathing problems on mic, and you hear that, it's like it becomes distracting. If you can manage to learn how to slow down a little bit, take your breaths where you need them, mark your places in your copy. I have no problem telling an engineer in a session, you know what? This big, long sentence here, I'm going to have to take a big old breath before we get there. So just know I'm going to take that break to be able to get through this whole line without having to take a breath in between. So those are some of the things that I try to do. And you're absolutely right. Staying healthy, do as I do and not as or do as I say and not as I do. Although I've actually lost about 7 ounces since yesterday, so I'm feeling really good.
Hey. Stay hydrated.
Yes, and that's
always have water by me.
always have water. And I even have my backup one right here. So, and just so you know, vodka looks a lot like water in a bottle. Anyway, no. But no, it's just taking care of yourself and being, a little self-care it's mandatory. It's not selfish in any way, shape, or form. If you can't be your best, you can't bring your best. And kind of to what Jayme was saying earlier about doing the things you need to do, the persistence and everything, I always like analogies. And the one that I always use all the time is if you have a farmer who has a bumper crop year, highest yield, best quality in the market, best price, what's the first thing that farmer does? Goes back to the field, turns the soil, and plants more seeds. Because if he doesn't, they have nothing the next season. So part of the problem is when you're busy, you're not keeping all the plates in the air where you're going out and continuing to nurture relationships to fill in the gap. So you have a continuum of work as opposed to that feast or famine that seems to happen very often in, a freelancer's life. We're so busy working, we're not looking for work.
Nick, I'm so glad that you brought that up. Sorry, go ahead, Terry.
I was going to say same with casting too. Our work ebbs and flows. We have feast or famine. And always when you book a trip to go away, that's when you get a job, right?
Yeah, things are slow. Book a non-refundable ticket.
Exactly.
You will get
Jayme.
Exactly. I was going to say, I love that you brought up the farming analogy, Nick, because that's something that I talk about a lot in my own mindset work with people. Is I love to use a garden metaphor. Like, that's something that a lot of people don't see, because when you look on people's social media, we all know it's a highlight reel, right? So we see it's very easy to feel discouraged or jealous seeing all the booking announcements and all these things. And you're like, man, I feel like everyone's booking but me. But what you don't see is all the hard work that goes in day out, right? So you're planting the seed. The seed is below the soil, so nobody's seeing the growth, but that doesn't mean that the growth isn't still working and being nurtured. And then eventually a little bud will come out, it'll grow and then come into a whole full blossom of a tree, and that's something that's so important. And we need to remind ourselves in those times when you're seeing everybody else's highlights. And certain parts of your career might thrive in different environments, right? Or have different seasons and times of year where some parts are going to flourish more than others. And all of that's valid. And all of that's okay. That doesn't make anything less than just because this part is growing and nurtured in this time, but this part's still in the cultivating season. Because that's how it is with farming too. Not every crop grows in every season. So it doesn't mean, just because you can't see it doesn't mean that the work isn't there.
Well, and also to that point, also remember, if you're really good at growing things, what is the first thing you do at the end of the season? You go out and you prune those trees, you prune the vines so that they become stronger and bear more fruit. Sometimes you have to cut things away from what you're doing to free up the time to do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want something to change, something has to change or it won't. I know it sounds simple, but a lot of us are so caught up in the day-to-day that we don't take the time to actually think about that. And that's really, really important. That's what setting the moment, as Jayme was saying, taking the time to reflect in the morning, taking the time to have that mind space where you're not just being, dealing with things that are flying at you all the time. You're actually being purposeful in what you're doing and how you set your day. I need to have that. I've got 3 different calendars. I have a weekly calendar, I have a daily calendar, and then I have I knew that was coming in and I tried to block it and it didn't happen. Oh, well, so much for that. Sorry about that. But yeah, I try to keep myself scheduled. And then I have within my daily calendar, I have another breakdown where I actually break it out hourly. And there are all kinds of little ways you can do that. You can do an app you just have 20-minute or half-hour bursts of concentrated focus. I read that. I wish I could remember the author, but it's a book I read. If you had a neighbor that went outside every 10 minutes to look in their mailbox to see if something came in, would you not think there was something wrong with them? Yet what do? Constantly all day long, 10, 12, 50. Do you know that most people will spend 30 to 40% of their day in total distraction? And it takes 2 to 3 minutes to get back into whatever you were doing to actually remain focused. Turn off your phone, put it in another room. Don't touch it if you have something you need to work on. If you have a script that came in, don't look until you've gotten that taken care of. I mean, there are just certain things you have to, it's all about discipline and, things that we really hate, but it's a job. You got to do the job to get the pay. So that's just, I'm going to climb down off my soapbox now.
No, that's good. And that's the thing too. It can feel really overwhelming as an actor, right? Because we are always told there's so many things we need to be doing and plates we need to be spinning. And so I like to break things down into bite-sized manageable chunks, right? Like, what is the next right thing that I can do right now? Just one thing. That can be sending an email to your agents to be like, hey, I took this workshop last week with this person and forged this connection. Just wanted to update you on what's going on with me and show that I'm being proactive. Like, text one friend for coffee. Take one of your old auditions and listen back to it and see the difference in how you approach it now versus how you did then. And then that's really helpful because the way that it works in your mind is once you do that one small thing, you feel more accomplished already. So instead of this whole laundry list of things, it's like, well, I have to get these done today. Start with that. And then that will make you feel good. And then you can tackle them one at a time. And for me, I'm a list person. So if there's any other list people on here, I live and die by my planner and to-do list. And I will write stuff down throughout the day. It could be something as simple as walk for 20 minutes, take out the trash, do voiceover auditions. And when I do it, I cross it off. So that way I feel a sense of tangible accomplishment. And then when I look back at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, wow, I actually got more done than I thought that I did today. And that'll make you feel more confident, like you're actually achieving more.
I go through that too. Nick, are there any apps that you use for organization? I see Jayme's is handwritten.
I've done
I see you're sharing information. If you have organizational methods that you use, put it in the chat to share it with everyone.
Yeah. I think I have 2 apps on my phone, and one is Pomodoro and the other is Evernote. They're good. One of the things that I like about Jayme's method, and the reason the schedules I was telling you about, they're all paper. I like the tactile,
Mhm.
grab a book, see everything right in front of you. As a matter of fact, well, when we do our workshop schedules, I have a calendar and I mark them in color as to which workshop days I'm doing and which ones you are. And I know everything that's going on, looking at a year, looking at a month, looking at a week, looking at a day, even sometimes looking at an hour. So those apps are great, but that screen is so small and it doesn't give me an opportunity to kind of get the big picture. And I need to have all of that. Everybody works differently. Find what works for you, but find something.
Great. So you mentioned marketing and relationships. So I want to talk about social media, especially I know as a casting director, my Instagram account is very, very active and I can see what people are doing when they post. And I like you guys to post. And I think it's very, very advantageous for you to be active on social media. And I think it's more of a question for Jayme than Nick in her point in her career. How are you using social media positively? I know that you mentioned you see other people booking and it could make you feel badly, but yeah, what are you finding the positives of social media and how are you taking advantage of social media? And I know that you know, have a lot of friends who you're growing with. So, can you share some of that?
Of course, Terry. Yeah. So, a big part of it, this applies to social media and beyond, which I know vocally is something you guys cover in your workshops too, is knowing your branding. Where do you fit in the community? Who are you as a person, not just as a voice actor, but then also vocally, what are your strengths and where do you feel like you fit? Because the more specific you get about that, the more you kind of get drawn to and gravitate toward the right type of genres, clients, friends, like your people find you the more specific you are. And I found that that's been really helpful for me because, you know, in my early years, I was just I wanted to be whatever I was told to be, whatever I should be, whatever looks impressive to other people. And that's when I wasn't really gaining any traction. It's once I got really confident and specific in who I am and what I have to bring to the table that I started feeling much more connected and aligned with the types of people and projects that I put out there. So my social media, rather than being highly curated or stylized, is very organic and a reflection of me as a person. So you look at my stuff, you're seeing exactly what you're going to get, and you get an idea of who I am and what kind of voiceover work that I do. Something that I love about social media is obviously the connection of it. There's so, like Terry said, the voiceover community is so loving and so kind and giving and helpful. And I've made a lot of parasocial friendships through people I connected with on TikTok that have since become my friends in real life. And we've actually met up since, and it's been great. And I've used that opportunity to connect with people on a real organic level too, be it post-production houses, clients, animation studios, people who are like indie developers who are creating their own work. I organically connect with them on there. There's a lot of casting calls and breakdowns, particularly on Twitter. Some of them have been on TikTok as well. And I've used those opportunities and I've gotten work and connections from seeing those and responding to those on there as well. So there's a lot of really positive ways that you can use social media, and that's coming from someone who's very resistant to it. I don't love posting and being online per se, but it is really helpful and you find what works best for you as an individual.
I find that very interesting since you're in charge of my social media.
I know. I love creating this stuff for all content, to be clear. Someone in the chat is asking about Clubhouse. Yes, Clubhouse is also a really great way to connect. A lot of people have panels and open discussions on there. I also know some different podcasts and audiobook dramas have been live performed on there, as well as poetry readings. So Clubhouse is another great way to connect with people. And you know, again, the voice acting community is very active on all of these different forums. So I recommend connecting with people and seeing which of those environments fit best for you.
I've noticed there's private Facebook groups.
Mhm.
I don't know if Jim Frank is on. I know he registered. I know he has a group, and you might want to, you know, start putting your radar out for that. Jayme mentioned something about knowing yourself. I'm going to do a selfless pitch here because Nick and we have what's called a IA, Intermediate Advanced Branding and Demo Prep workshop coming up on the 28th, right, Jayme? Is that the date?
Yes, coming.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and there's a couple of spots left. And oh my God, like we work you out on mic for 6 weeks, and there's branding where 4 of the weeks, for an hour before each class, I work with you on your branding that you are working with during the week. We have seen people change from, just like Jayme said, all over the place, like they didn't really land any place, to absolutely solid reads where you get in front of that mic and it's way beyond technique. You own your reads. And as a casting director, the reads go through me first when I put out a breakdown. Then I send a certain amount that my client will allow me to send to them. And I look for very connected reads that, and I'm finding the reads that stand out are reads with a specific point of view, even when it's just informational. And so you'll get to learn that. That's the end of my pitch. It's info. Jayme can put it in the chat, info@voiceprintwest.com. And that's the one we have coming up now. And then those of you who are just starting out, you must have some voiceover training to get into that. And then other times of the year, we have core where you can, you don't know anything yet. And usually the core leads into the branding and demo prep, but we happen to have about 4 spots available now in that, starting on the 28th. So, all right. So I told you what stands out to me. Anything else, guys, you want to get into? We've done social media, what to do when you get stuck. Anything else you want to cover?
I think that, the one thing is for me, being in this for as long as I have, the one thing I will say, it has not lost any of its luster or shine. I still love what I do. I get up every day. I'm probably the luckiest guy I know because I get up every day to do something I absolutely love to do. And the great thing about voiceover is I can still see doing this for many more years to come. It's one of those things that I got to work with Bill Shallert when he was in his late 80s, and the man could nail a read in time. The first read said, how long was that? 31. What do you want? 29 and a half. Son of a gun. Next take, 29 and a half. It's like, okay, well, I guess we're done here. So it's something that if you really, really want to pursue this, it is not the dabbling type of job. It's, some people say I need it as a side hustle. You might be able to, do it a little bit as a side hustle. I don't think that's going to be the best way to build a career. And if that's what you're looking for, you need to really think about it as it's a job, it's a profession. I've been lucky enough to do this for 40 years and I love every minute of it. I can count on one hand and still have several fingers left over the number of times I wasn't happy being in the booth.
Fantastic. Let's open it up to questions now, specifically, because it's an hour. Jayme, did you see any questions?
Yeah. Do you want people to turn their video back on and do the raise your hand icon, and then we can answer the questions that way?
To introduce yourselves, tell us the city you live in, because what's so great about voiceover is you can live in any city and work. Nick had mentioned that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Julio's hand is still up. I know when I book talent, if I have several people, 5 people that I'm booking, maybe 2 will be in LA, 1 will be in Iowa, someone else is in Vegas, it's like pretty wild. And, you know, it's not like on camera, you just have the right connection. Your booth set up with the right connection, and we can book you.
I do have a question. I'll just go right ahead and start. Let me just, crack the ice here. My name is Julio Leon. I am from Houston, Texas, and I am just a baby in my journey. I'm just getting started. I literally just have like 2 platforms. I haven't really gotten into direct marketing yet, but I've just gotten started. I did get some education through a voiceover academy by a VA that's well known. I recently started networking with other VAs and gotten to kind of change my strategy a little bit. So I wanted to ask y'all about platforming versus direct marketing, and whether say one like me, I've seen a lot of just not a lot of positivity when it comes to these platforms, and I find that a lot of direct marketing is actually more advantageous. But I would like to know y'all's opinion and see, for a guy like me, what would be the first or one of the few steps that you would do to get himself out there?
Let me grab that question real quick. Let me, again, with the analogies. Have you ever gone fishing? Or do you fish on a regular basis?
I have gone fishing, but I don't go fishing. But I do. Yes, I have gone fishing.
Yeah. Well, what I would tell you, if you're a fisherman, what you don't do is go to the same fishing hole where you have 100 other people dropping their hook in.
I feel
hike upstream. Yeah, hike upstream, put 9 hooks on your line, throw it in the river before it gets down to the fishing hole, and get things before everybody else has a chance. That's where the direct marketing comes in. The platforms, you are one of hundreds of people. When you get a casting person like Terry, Terry's the one that sits there and kind of sifts through all that stuff and picks the right people to present to her client. So if you get in with a casting director who knows what you do, you got a better shot. That's actually even better than having an agent, because an agent will send in 10 or 12 people. It may go to 10 agencies, which means now you're one of 120. With Terry, she narrows that down. So there are various stages where you have better opportunities. The best opportunity is when I'm on the phone speaking to somebody and I'm doing my own farming, and I'm calling production companies, or I'm talking to broadcast producers or copywriter or somebody I know who can use my services. I'm in a category of 1. I'm the only person they're talking to. They're not talking to anybody. They may not even be thinking of their voiceover people. Mm. So when you have that 1-to-1, your chances are much, much better. That's why you want to have your own website, so you don't send them to your agent's website where they listen to you and then, oh, well, let me listen to this. Suddenly with every click, they're further away from having heard what it is that you did. And you're no longer a category of 1. If you send people to your website, you're the only person they're going to be listening to at that point in time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, everyone should have a simple website. I had a guest on, do you know VORG, Voiceover Resource Guide? Julio, and everyone else, you know this guide?
That one I have not seen.
Well, you should look at it online, and part of it's broken down, and part of it is recording studios And because recording studios produce a lot of their own projects and cast their own projects, especially the more announcer things. So get this, you can get it online too, the voiceover resource guide. And you can start approaching them like Nick has suggested.
That's fantastic. Thank y'all very much. It's very, very helpful.
And
Of
just
course.
to kind of lend a little validity to what that can lead to, I've been
Yes.
doing training videos for the Department of Defense, and it all came out of a conversation with the producer that I've been working with 27 years ago. I called and I said, hey, I do voiceover for a living, and I don't call looking for work. I call offering to help. If you ever find yourself in a position where you need a voiceover talent, just shoot me a quick email. If it's a rush thing, text me. I'll get you an audition back, get your client on, the same page. We move forward from there. And they called back about a week or 10 days later and said, hey, what would it cost for you to record a training that we're going to be submitting for a bid to the Department of Defense? And I said, well, it's a bid, right? Yeah. It's coming out of your pocket, right? Yeah. Well, I'm not going to charge. That's an audition. She says, well, yeah, but it's going to be a half hour of finished audio because we have to submit an entire training for them to assess in the bid. I said, okay, still an audition. So here's the deal. You get the job. I want to be the guy. And she said, well, yeah, you would be the guy. 27 years later, I'm the only person they've worked with, and they've been my biggest client the last 3 years.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
Wow.
there are those kinds of jobs out there. The thing about some of these platforms is you don't have an opportunity to build relationships because there's no direct interaction between you and the client. They're the
It's very
intermediary.
impersonal. Yes,
Absolutely.
I agree.
So there are clients out there that will pay you. This has all been union work too, and they pay me well over triple scale.
Mhm.
So, just know that there are people out there that will value you for what you do and will pay you fairly, and sometimes even more than fairly, for what it is you do. We don't get paid for the work we do. We get paid for the use of the work we do.
Mhm.
So just know that you have a value. Don't take less than that. Ever, in any aspect of your life, ever.
Yeah. If you're doing
have a-
union work, go to the union website, see what payments are. And I see there's a lot of chat here about Nava. On the Nava site, oh no, is it Nava, Jayme, or is it the resource guide that actually has suggested non-union payments? I can't.
Yeah, the GVAA rate guide
Yeah.
too. I put it in the chat. Other
Oh,
people
good.
can link in there. That has been so helpful for me when quoting clients for
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously when you're first starting out, you're not going to make what Nick is making, but you don't want to undersell yourself. You don't want to dumb down the entire industry. And
Yeah.
you're not going to be respected. You want to progress in this with respect. And
Correct.
yeah,
I feel
Yeah.
like I'm not, I'm not a spring chicken. I'm not old either. I'm
that doesn't
45. I
matter.
feel like I'm in a
You're
great
young. You're
spot
young.
in my life right now. I
Exactly.
spent 24 years as a bartender. Most of that I did that in New York City. I traveled all over the United States. I had a good time, but I've been always wanted to do this work, and now I finally have the opportunity to do so. So I look at Fiverr and I look at Vocal and I look at all these Upwork and all these things, and I'm just like blown. My mind is just blown on just the underselling that happens on these platforms.
Exactly.
And I can't do that. And I just want to
Exactly.
make sure that
Well,
my work, I think I have good work,
Yeah.
but I want to make sure I'm in the right places, the right people, and doing it the right way. So I really appreciate this resource. All of y'all's comments, very, very helpful. I gotta say thank you.
Stick
Well,
with
thank you.
us. We'll guide you in the right
Thank
direction.
Well, and
you.
Heard that.
All right,
Thank you.
let's move on to the
I will tell you one thing real quick is, I am I the best voiceover talent in the business? No. What I do well, and I don't try to delude myself by trying to do too much, especially if it's not a strength. I just happen to be very fortunate to have worked in every aspect of the business pretty much. But McDonald's did not make their money off of selling filet mignon. But when the perceived price is met and they plunk down your money, you get what you expect. And I would rather be the, McDonald's of voiceover than the Ruth's Chris any day, because billions served is the goal. So just know that what you have has a place, and it's good to know what it is you're selling and how to sell it and to whom you're selling it. And don't take less than what you deserve. That is the one thing, as Terry was saying. Don't undermine not only your own ability to make a living at this, but also all of ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
I know we have other questions. I just wanted to chime in really quick and say, as far as the direct marketing goes, definitely don't underestimate the local markets as well. Especially because those aren't as saturated. Like, I'm from Southern Virginia, and I have gone and reached out to some local businesses that I just know from back home and called them and be like, hey, are you guys looking for like a commercial for you guys? Are you looking for outgoing voicemail or automatic IDR systems? I would be happy to lend my voice to that. Since I'm from back home, I'd really love to work with you. And here are my rates. Here's my website. And I've built a client base in my own small hometown area that way. So definitely don't sleep on the smaller markets. Okay. I think I saw Maurice had raised his hand earlier. Do you still have a question, Maurice?
No, actually, I can save that for later. I was just gonna.
Carolina has a question.
Okay, no problem.
Hi guys, I'm Carolina. I'm out of Newport Beach. I'm out of Newport Beach,
As soon as
California.
I said it, I knew I was wrong.
It's okay. It's okay. I do have a question for you guys, but I just want to say that I've taken a class with these guys, with Nick and Terry, and they are amazing.
Oh,
and if there's anyone on here who's thinking about joining, you guys just do it, because they're amazing. So my question is, when do we know, when is the right time to have our demo reel created? When do we know we are ready?
Nick,
that's a really good question.
Nick has an interesting story about that.
Yeah. No, I think it's kind of a combination of things. You'll know, but also whoever is going to be producing your demo should be honest with you as to where you're at and whether you're ready to go forward. To what Terry was saying, I mean, to some degree, when I first started in the business, I had a friend that worked for an ad agency back in New York, and he said, hey, we're having a casting. I'd like to, have you read on this. Would you be interested? I said, yeah. And this is long ago. He faxed me the copy, and, and I was, in the process, I was still in training and working with my mentor, Tom Pinto. And, I went to Tom and I said, I have a friend who's sent me an audition. He said, well, it might be a little premature. I said, yeah, but he's a friend of mine. He's, works for the agency. Okay. So we sent it off. My friend called me a couple of days later after he got the FedEx, and he said, just so you know, he said, I didn't pass this on to Ethan and Chuck because I didn't want them to have this be their first impression of you. And I said, oh. And I was a little crestfallen. And he said, just, keep working at it. Another opportunity, and this is the difference between a blown opportunity and a missed opportunity. A missed opportunity will represent itself. A blown opportunity usually doesn't come back. And so he helped me from not blowing that opportunity. And about 4 months later, he said, we've got another audition. I'm going to send you the copy if you're interested. I said, yes, sir. And he sent it off, and I ended up working. That was the start. I worked with that agency until the owner retired, 32-year stretch. And, it's just one of those things where timing is everything, and not going out too early. Also, because had I gotten out there and been disappointed on the level of not having them want to come back and work with me again, I may not have continued to pursue things. I think that's one of the things that's so hard for talent when they, if you hit big early on too, just realize that you got lucky. Don't expect that to be the norm. Don't expect to get those national commercials every year. Yeah, it was wonderful. And you might have a good string and succession of lots of them, but don't come to count on that. It's the day-to-day stuff that you pay your bills with.
I'd like to chime in as a casting director. I have to be very careful who I send on to my clients. So years ago, there was times that I could say now I over-directed talent because you're with me in the booth at the audition. I know you have it. I want you to get it. I want everyone to get it. And so someone got it and they got into the booking. They went into the booth there and they couldn't do it because they didn't have me like moment to moment directing them. And I swore to myself and I've stuck to it. I will not over direct someone anymore. And you guys should not have demos that are overproduced. Like Nick said, appreciate where you are now, get the jobs where you are now, and know that you're going to grow. And so as a casting director, I have to be very confident that you can come through for my client, because that's one of the things my clients expect from me, is that whoever is submitted to them through the very generous selection that we give our clients, that they're all really professional, know what they're doing, know how to be directed, know how to work a mic, feel confident. And that's, we all have to feel confident. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, and I saw that Janet mentioned in the chat something very important that I'd like to bring up as well. As a lot of you are working voice actors, I'm sure you already know, but be very wary of people who market like a one-day workshop with a promised demo at the end and things like that, because it'll save you so much heartache and money as actors. We know how tough financially this industry can be. And you don't want to waste your time and money on stuff like that. Like Terry and Nick said, you want someone that you can trust, that you've been coaching with, that knows when you are ready. I studied and trained for years before I made my first demo because I really wanted to feel like I was competitive in the field and that my demo was reflective of that. And so definitely don't rush into it. You'd rather have a quality product that you feel good about, that your clients and casting directors and agents feel good about, than something that's kind of cobbled together or overproduced and isn't a true reflection of what you can actually do.
No, an overproduced demo will raise the expectation level of the buyer. And you better be able to come in with all that razzle dazzle from the second you walk in the door. Because if you can't, it's like doing, heavily Photoshopped headshots. Like, when's the person in the picture going to show up?
Exactly.
That's me. No, it's not.
Yeah. And by the way, if you have connections, like a coach that you work with, or people like that you know and trust, who know what they're doing and are established in the industry, ask them if they'd be okay just taking a listen to your demo, especially if it's like still a rough cut while you don't have the final version of it, and be like, hey, do you have any thoughts or feedback? And then take that, obviously with a grain of salt, but take that and then use that to your advantage. Don't be afraid to ask people for help, because there's so many people who are willing to help and rooting for you.
I have people asking me that quite often.
I did. I asked you for feedback on my demos.
Like our intermediate advanced branding and demo prep, that doesn't mean, those words don't mean that you're getting a demo. There are some classes that say, oh, at the end of this, we use the work that you did in class and we produce a demo for you. No, that just doesn't
No,
work.
I can tell you from firsthand experience, many, many years ago, I had an acting coach who came to me with some of their on-camera people and said, if I put together a group of 10 people for your workshop, could we work out a price where they would get the workshop and a demo at the end of that? And of course, built into that was theirs would be free. And I said, I really did. And somehow I got talked into it.
Ooh.
And I know. And not one of those 10 people, 11, including the coach, Not one of them booked with an agent. And that is something I really, I take pride in the fact that a lot of people that do work with me get signed. And it taught me you're at cross purposes, because a demo needs to be things you can do, like, falling off a log, and a workshop needs to be a place where you push yourself into areas of discomfort to grow. And those are two different things. So I don't have the time in a workshop to get the perfect take. And if I do, other people can get cheated on time if we keep the time limit to the 3 hours that we set up. So it's definitely not a symbiotic relationship in getting that kind of an outcome from a workshop.
Maurice is asking Terry and Nick, do either of you offer demo reviews and critiques?
Sure. I do. I'd be more than happy to take a listen to it. Send it off to info@VoicePrint West. And
yeah, I'll put the email in the chat. So if anyone has any questions as well after this is over, feel free to direct those there and we'll get back.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with first-time demos is people try to do too much. You want to stay away from high-profile campaigns that people know you definitely did not do. You want to stay away from stuff that is outside of your wheelhouse. When I did my last, when I actually moved to this agency I'm with, when I gave them a new cut of the demo, my agent listened to it and he goes, "Oh man, that second piece, I had no idea that was you." Said I kept listening, go, "Well, what's Nick, showcasing this other guy in this spot? He's not," and they realized it was me. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, lose it." I said, "What?" He said, "Lose it." I said, "That's not how I am going to sell you. What needs to be on the demo is how they're going to sell you 90% of the time." Because it's kind of those sight unseen things. Now I've gotten a lot of work from my demos. But the biggest source of work is return business for me now. Then it's demo submissions, and very far behind. If you're booking 1 out of 30 or 40 auditions, you're doing well.
Yes.
Ooh, this is a very important one. Red is asking, how do you feel about people recording their own demos as opposed to going to a professional demo producer studio?
I can answer that first, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never heard a demo that was self-produced that was good. And I can tell like within the first 5 seconds, but I'll make it believable. I'll say 10 seconds. And I could go into what makes up, well, I'll just do it briefly and then I'll hand it over to Nick. But there's a certain rhythm, there's music, there's a flow, and of course then the connection of your reads. And I'll let Nick say.
Yeah, no, I've never I don't produce my own demos. I've produced over 3,000 demos in my career, and I don't produce my own because I'm too close to it. I don't have any objectivity. As many years as I've been in this, I have no objectivity about my own work. I just wake up every day going, "Wow, another day they haven't found me out." So, but no, it's also, when I started working in the business, demos were 2 to 3 minutes long. Sometimes there are whole 30-second spots back to back to back. It's now 1 minute, and it flies. My demo is 1 minute, has 9 clips on it. So if you're not familiar with the medium, if you're not familiar with the concepts and how there are reasons why certain things are mixed, if you listen to my demo, you go, "Well, gosh, I can barely hear his voice on this because I'm buried in the mix." But that's a TV mix. That wasn't, if it was my choice, I'd push my voice right up there. Wasn't my choice. So I got a clip of the spot and I put it in my demo. That's what happens. So, there are a lot of things that figure into it.
There's something that flared up about a year and a half ago. I think it's toned down, but Jayme, you can tell me if it's out there in the ethers of the voiceover world, where voiceover talent thought it was better to show the whole, if it's on camera, to show the whole spot, present the whole spot as their demo, because their voice is on it. I say no, absolutely not, because I'm listening to the voice. I don't have to see how your voice is fitting the spot.
Mhm.
And by the way, many times when it comes down to the final selection process, which I'm not a part of, that is one of the things the creative selection team, booking team is doing. They actually take your spot, your audition, and see how it emotionally feels to the picture. It's one of the ways that they use for their final choice. And it hasn't happened often, but not often at all, but I think once or twice they actually used, maybe once in my whole career. And then of course they tell me, and then we tell your agent, or if you're direct, and you get paid for the spot. So
Yeah, I would agree with you, Terry. I think if you have something like that where you have a full spot, put that on your YouTube. People can always go to your YouTube and watch the full spot and hear your voice on there. But I agree with what Terry's saying. And I see that Conrad was asking in the chat, and I'd like to kick this one off if you guys don't mind. Okay, professionally reduced demos, got it. But what about recording your own little bite-sized samples for your website? And from my personal experience, as long as you have good broadcast quality sounding home studio, I say it's great. I have samples on my website, and I'll tell you exactly what I have. I have a short about not even a minute of a sample of my home studio where I say, hey, I'm Jayme Mantos. I'm recording my home studio. Here are my studio specs. And then I leave about 10 to 15 seconds of room tone so you can hear what that quality of your booth sounds like. And that's something that Jay Preston and Tim Friedlander and people have also recommended having on your site, especially if you have Source Connect standard, put that you have a Source Connect studio on your website. So that way people know that that's how you're operating. And then because I tend to do a lot of animation and character work, in addition to my demos, I have little 30-second bite-sized samples that say, oh, sassy Scottish barkeep, 8-year-old bubbly girl. And you can click and listen to those. So that way you're not scrolling through a demo trying to find it if there's something specific casting is looking for, and they can hear it. Like I said, as long as it's reflective of the quality of your home studio booth and sounds good, I think that it's perfectly great to supplement that. In fact, I just had a new client, a production studio last week, that I said, here, my samples, my demos, my resume, here's the link to my website. The head of the studio got back to me and said, hey, we just listened to your samples and your demos. Really great work. We'll keep those specific roles in mind for you when castings come up. So I think it's great having those to supplement.
I know as a casting director, I'll go to your website. And this will take care of another question that Red asked, how many demos should a person have? If I'm casting a commercial, I'll listen to your commercial one. If I'm casting an animation, so commercial animation, some people do books, other people do promo one, e-learning. There's just, so many different, so it's broken down and easy for me as a casting director. I certainly cannot I have to go directly to what you're to what I'm casting for. So yes, you do want to break it down. Another great thing when you know your branding, we have people who finish the branding with us, and it helps with the website. Your website should be simple, but it should definitely have a feel to it, whether it be a color, whether you can put all your strongest attributes that you're branding yourself with, actually adjectives on there. And if there's any design, it will emotionally reflect your branding too. But, very simple. I don't think Jim Frank is on here, but I think
Jim is on. I saw
Oh,
him
he's here,
pop in.
yeah, yeah.
So
Jim, don't you have a business doing that?
yes.
He does. Do you want to come on for a moment, or am I putting
Can't
you
hear you,
on the
Jim.
spot? Or am I putting you on the spot?
He's trying to get it.
He's trying to get on. By the way, Both Jim and I will be at VoiceOver Atlanta in 2 weeks. And those of you who are and that's a great place to be with the industry. And oh my God, there's so many panels and what's called X sessions. If any of you are going, I do have an X session where there's some spots on Saturday, and it's about finding the nuggets, the golden nuggets in the script to help you with your reads.
Which is different than going to McDonald's and go the Golden Arches and getting McNuggets.
Yeah,
It's a little different, but actually, that's where Terry and I first met, was last year at VO Atlanta in one of her 3-hour sessions, and it's been game changing since. So, thanks for having me on. Yeah, talking about what
a simple
honestly,
website. Yeah, people.
I just got back from the bathroom, so I didn't hear the last part when you called
sorry.
my name. That's okay. You're talking about
We were talking
cheap
about
websites?
simple websites, and I said Jim Frank, I think, is on here.
Yeah. Well, what I do is I don't want to be your web person.
No,
I'm a
you're
voice
not. You
actor.
won't be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be anybody's web person. What I do is I teach you how to build your website, how to build it, how to expand it as your business grows, how to update things. Now, if you learn how to fish with me, as opposed to me giving you a fish, if you run into a problem 3-4 months down the road, you know, you're part of the circle, just reach out to me and I can redirect you again. It's an online class that I do one-on-one. You can record it, take it with you, sell it to somebody else, go into business for yourself, creating websites. I don't care. I'm just trying to help people. It's so expensive to get a website built. I have been building websites with Wix for 18 plus years, with different radio stations that I've worked with and clusters and my own businesses. And it went from being, you know, ooh, Wix to, ooh, Wix. There's so much that you can do with it now. I have built Dave Fenoy's website is built and maintained by me. Kristen Paiva, who just left Disney and went off on her own. I'm helping her out, build her website for her. And both those guys have learned how to just take the reins and ride with it. It's amazing how much people have learned. Troy Holden, I just got off a call with him Wednesday, and Thursday I went back to look at his website. Completely different than what we built, but that's what it's about. Learn. I have no ego. You know, I want you to be happy. So basically, it's $250, quick and easy. If you want, because I thank you for this kind of exposure. Let me put a Berland 10 coupon on it, and we'll take 10% off. Just because you know. So
would you be willing to put your website in the chat, Jim, so people can check it out?
Oh yeah, sure. All this technology.
What I love about these sessions, it really becomes organic. Obviously, I had no idea, you know, it would organically lead to this.
You know, I just joined on like maybe 20 minutes ago because I was in a session and couldn't make it. I was hoping for the replay. I had just joined on. So it's websites4vo.com. Ask me what I do. Well, I do websites for VO.com. It's right there in the chat. You can set up a 15-minute free consult with me. We'll look at what you have going on. You may have something that's perfectly fine. That I'll just tell you what my opinion is. I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of casting directors, a lot of agents, and you know what they like to see, where they like to see it, how quickly they like to see it. And people are lazy, so pretty much that above the fold, that's your calling card. So I kind of know what they want, where they want, and I know how to put it there. So I do work exclusively with Wix because it's the one that I know. You know, they're all so different. I'm not going to learn them all because I'm not a web guy. I'm a voice actor that happens to know Wix very, very well. And I love teaching and passing it on to people. So if you want to talk to me further about it, set up a 15-minute chat. It's about a 3-hour process for us to go start to finish. After that, I send you off on your merry way. And then we reconvene about 2, 3, 4 days later to see what you've done. I want you to go play. I want you to make mistakes. You can't screw it up. There's a fix button, there's a back button, there's a time machine. I set a point where, last with Jim. So if everything just goes kablooey, we can always go back to that point where we last said goodbye, and we can start fresh from where we started happy.
And I'll see you at VO Atlanta. See you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Let me just say one more thing, if I could. I know I'm kind of dominating right now, but I just want people say Wix. Well, who's going to host it? You can do one of two things. If you have a program that you're already committed to hosting on, you can take a website you build someplace and have it hosted someplace else. You are not bound to be with Wix. If you'd like to go with Wix, obviously the integration's a lot easier. I'll walk you through all the other integrations, but and if you have your domain, all my domain names are with GoDaddy. Doesn't matter where you have your domain name. But if you go with Wix, they have a half price sale every 7 to 10 days religiously for the past 20 years. And it'll cost you $9.50 per month for 3 years. So it's $13.50 a month for 1 year, $11.50 a month for 2 years. But if we're in this for the long haul, 3 years, $9.50 a month for 3 years, $340 up front.
Okay, enough. They can
Take care
get
of it
more
there.
information.
And I'm done.
from
That's
you.
it.
They can-
Berland 10. Remember that coupon code? I'll put it here. Berland 10.
Thank you.
You get 10% off. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And I
See you
can't
in a
wait to see
couple of
you.
weeks.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody ask a question about whether they should have a demo first or the website first. I would say have the demo first, only because it would be opening a store without having any inventory.
Exactly.
Right. But I will say, if you want to get your website ready and not host it,
Doesn't need to be live yet.
You can get all that creative done, learn how to do it while you're waiting for your demo. We can put a placeholder in there.
Yep.
And then when it's time, you put your demo in, hit publish, and boom, you're live. Sorry, I'll stop.
What you just said reminded me of something funny I saw on Facebook. Someone took a sign someplace down south, and it was a sign in front of a store that said, "All inventory in this store available."
Like, interesting. I'm sure it struck them as being very important at the time they came up with it. But
Alrighty. Well, any other questions as we come toward the end?
All right. This was very constructive. I thank you so much, Nick and Jayme, for your time.
oh, thank you.
You have our email. If you like this, you can tell us whatever. And we do have your email addresses now, so you will be getting, obviously look out for more of these inside room chats, talks, sessions, but we'll also send you information on them. And everyone have a great day, unless there's anything you want to end with, Jayme and Nick.
Yeah, I'll just say to wrap it up, like I said, our email's in the chat in case anybody has any questions. Also, if you had to pop out and you missed part of this chat, there will be a replay available on Berland Casting's YouTube page. So be on the lookout for that this week. I also, little plug on behalf of Terry, because I love it. While you're there, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, because like Terry said, we're going to be having more of these inside room Zoom chats and interview sessions with people. And Terry also has a lot of great videos she's uploaded with little nuggets. You can also check out some of the spots that Terry's cast for big companies on there as well. So it's a really great free resource if you want to get more tips about voiceover in the industry and acting and commercial acting and all that as well. So check it out.
Excellent. Thank you all for coming. I really enjoyed the questions. Also, as I mentioned earlier, don't ever take less than what you deserve, and don't ever give up.
Thank you, Nick. Great ending words of wisdom. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank you.